take care. All right. Welcome to Sapphire Ridge News. Because of how on edge everybody is lately, I decided to take a day and just do some stuff on history. So that's why today we're going to talk about the Battle of Little Bighorn, truth versus myth. Now, before we get started, if you would like, share, and subscribe, I would appreciate that because that's free and that tells the YouTube algorithm that my content needs to be spread. So, the Battle of Little Bighorn, we all know it happened a long time ago. And I've always found it rather fascinating, the version of events that was told. And here's why. Because no one survived. And yet they tell this, what I would call a fanciful story of what happened. Because they, in the history books, they taught us that Armstrong was surrounded and just attacked and unalived. But when I watched two documentaries on this about a year ago, and one of them was the Battle of Little Bighorn, and the other was the Battle of Little Bighorn from the Indians' perspective. And that told a storyline that I found to be quite believable, because we know from records that Custer split his troops up into 4 groups. He was supposed to wait for the scouts to get back because the scouts had found the Indian camp and had estimated there was 100,000 braves in the Indian camp. He didn't wait for the scouts to get back. He split his troops up into 4 groups of, I believe it was like 100 or 150. And he sent a scout to meet up with the general that was supposed to back him up. Now, see, what's not told there is when the Indians did their documentary, they said that Custer attacked the camp of Chief Spotted Eagle while the warriors, the braves, were away, and that Custer killed men, women, children, well, I should say old men. And then he moved on and he was heading towards the bigger camp, which is at Little Bighorn. Now, I live in Miles City, Montana. Miles City, Montana is 65 miles from the Little Bighorn battlefield. Chief Spotted Eagle's camp is here in Miles City. It's right here in Miles City. And it's estimated that the big camp, the one at Little Bighorn, spread from Little Bighorn almost to here, and that Chief Spotted Eagle's camp was like an outpost. So It's also said that one of the braves escaped and was not killed when Custer went through there, and that he went to the big camp. So the big camp knew what Custer did and was waiting for him. And Custer's orders were to proceed to the big camp and wait for his reinforcements. Hi, FN. And Custer went, and he was on a ridge over the camp about a mile and a half away. And instead of waiting like he was told, my favorite sport is football. Instead of waiting like he was told, he split his troops. I don't like men. I like women. He split his troops and he attacked anyway. So I've always wondered how the history books could say their version of what happened when not Custer nor none of his braves survived. Nobody survived. No one survived. And so I've always wondered about that. So I did some investigation and some research, and I found that Custer's wife was told what actually happened, and that she changed the whole story because she did not want people to want her husband to be thought of as being a coward or insubordinate. So the version we've been taught in history books is from someone who wasn't there, had no knowledge, well, was told what happened, but she basically made up what happened. And because of politics, they put that in the history books. You know, when you have no one survived, it's like, how could that happen? How could he be surrounded and everyone just like it was an ambush when you find out that Custer, now according to the Indian version, Custer and 20 of his men waited up on the ridge, and he sent his other men all ahead, and that he did not go down to fight until he saw his own men being slaughtered. That's the Indian version. And the Indians hated Custer because Custer was well known in the Indian community for the mass brutal attacks where he unalived women, children, old men, and left them to lay in the middle of the camp. And I think that's just awful that we have lionized someone who was apparently a real tyrant. Because only a tyrant kills women and children. Only a tyrant does that. And so I think it's important that we look at stories from both sides, and that we look at the myths and we look at the truth from both sides, and we then make up our mind as what actually happened. And I think the truth of what happened is in between what the Indians say happened and what the history books say happened. Now, mind you, the Indians' version has been passed down from the actual chiefs that were there. Chief Spotted Eagle, Sitting Bull, and Crazy Horse. They all passed down the stories of what happened that day to their families, and it's being told today. Hey, Kevin. And their version is 100% different from what we have been told in our history books. Like I was saying earlier, their version says that Custer attacked Chief Spotted Eagle's camp, which is here in my town of Miles City, Montana, and that the Braves were out and that he unalived men, women, children, old men, women, children, and that he was told to follow the Braves to the big camp. What he didn't know was that one of the Braves escaped from Chief Spotted Eagle's camp and went and told the Braves at the big camp. And Custer was also told to wait for his reinforcements. Do not attack before the reinforcements arrive. And the documentary that they did on this about 2 years ago showed that he did not wait, that he sent a scout to go to the general that was coming. Hey, Elijah. Don't spam the chat. Yeah, don't spam the chat. Don't be disrespectful, okay, guys? And he didn't wait. He sent his scout to go tell the general where he was, and the general sent the scout back with a message that said it would be however many days for him to wait until he got there. He did not wait. He sent his 2 scouts to view the Indian big camp, which was Little Bighorn is the big camp. And the big camp was 2 miles wide and approximately 15 miles long. And it's suggested that there was about 100,000 Braves. And Custer had under 1,000 men, which he split up into groups of 150 to 200, I think it was. And so, that's really disturbing and troubling that here all this time we have lionized this person who was, in my view, a evil tyrant. We should not be lionizing people that are actual tyrants. We should not be doing that. And that's why I'm always telling people, search out the truth. Look at both sides. What I did was I watched the documentary from the American side and I watched the documentary from the Native American side, and I've decided that the truth is somewhere in the middle. I think that the truth is that Custer split his group. You are not supposed to split your group if you have under 1,000 men. Well, you could split it in half and do 500 and 500, but he split it in fours, and it's estimated that there was like 150 to 200 men in each group because he had 25 stay back with him up on the ridge while he overwatched the battle. And I just don't think that was good. I don't think it was good at all. And I've always wondered how they got the events and sequences because no one survived. And the documentary that I watched 2 years ago, from the American perspective, what they did is they used actual notes. He had a army secretary, and his secretary took notes at everything that he did, and every order that he gave was recorded, and they pieced things together with his notes. And what his notes said was that he split his group into four. However, the notes did not say how many were in each group. And what I'm going by is, estimates. Because if you have under 1,000 men and you split your group up into four, that would be 250 each. But they also said he kept 25 men with him. So which that goes along with what the Indians said, because the Indians said that he split his group and that 25 stayed back with him while the others attacked the camp. So you see where I'm putting dots together and saying, okay, this is probably what happened. Because, if you split your group and you keep 25 back and you send them forward in waves, it would have been better for him to send them forward all at once instead of sending them forward in waves, and the first wave gets wiped out by overwhelming force. Then you send a second wave. Do you know what I mean, guys? Because it's just mind-boggling that we have been taught this lie in the history books all these years. So what I always do is I always look up both sides, and I always look for the truth, and I always look for what myths are, and I decide that the actual truth has to be somewhere in the middle. And being here in Miles City, 65 miles away from the battlefield, and Chief Spotted Eagle's camp is here, I can plan on going to Chief Spotted Eagle's camp sometime and, just do a walkthrough, because they made it a RV park with a museum. So that's what I got for y'all today. Thank you for tuning in. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so that we can spread the message out to everyone on YouTube. And also remember, liking, sharing, and subscribing is free. It doesn't cost anything, but it benefits me because I get more subscribers. So I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye for now.